Timcast IRL will be live in Miami with Patrick Bet David, Donald Trump Jr., Matt Gaetz, and Luke Rudkowski. Join us there. Get your tickets by clicking the link in the description below or by going to timcast.com. I want to segue this because overpopulation, families and stuff is a good way to segue into this story. We have this from timcast.com. Protesters chant, "Send them back" at AOC during NYC press conference. An estimated 110,000 illegal immigrants have arrived in the city since 2022. This story is fascinating, and the video is even more fascinating. Take a look at this. You got to hear this. Let's play it.
Yes, and ultimately, I think that there are 3 points of consensus here that are very important in getting a solution to this issue. The first is that there is consensus here across geography and states on increased federal resources to cities and municipalities dealing with this issue.
There's consensus, all right.
Listen.
Authorization.
Okay, I gotta play that again.
To cities and municipalities dealing with this issue. The second is to allow for work authorizations so that the folks in here can get to work and start supporting themselves as soon as possible.
AOC is abject evil. And you can hear these people screaming at her. And what is her response to them? Don't worry. We're going to give them work rights so that they can displace your wages, lower your wages, displace your jobs. Have a nice day.
They are prevented from getting jobs. They are prevented from employment. And that is part of the strain on our public systems. The faster that folks can access the work that they're asking for legally, the better we can solve this problem. And the third is extension of temporary protected status.
Look at this.
Who are the largest population that are arriving here. So with that, we thank you all.
She is so evil that people are screaming at her and protesting across the board in these cities. And what does she say? We're going to spend more federal resources on them. We're going to give them work rights and protected status over you while they're screaming at her, send them back.
Are those her constituents?
Yes.
Hopefully, yeah.
So those are the people she's representing?
Yep.
Yeah.
No,
well,
she's representing
Curtis
the
Lee
immigrants.
was, I mean, everybody, they're freaking out about it. Curtis Lee was been arrested protesting this a bunch. I mean, this is a big deal that there are actual vets that they're kicking out of hotels to put these illegal immigrants in. That makes no sense. Why would a vet that went and risked their life in Iraq be less likely to get social services than an immigrant from Venezuela?
I'm sorry to tell you, Alex Ocasio-Cortez, not you, Alex,
She
I'm
looks
happy to tell you,
sexy,
yo, you are not here to govern the world. An illegal immigrant, it's not your job. Your job is to protect and serve the United States and the citizens of the United States, lady. Get it straight.
I think
that's not her job. The Democrats want us to just be one big globalist homogenous blob.
It's got to happen slow.
She's a commie. That's why she's an international communist. Like, even though she's a representative from New York, she's a member of the DSA, and she's an actual communist. They don't believe in borders. They don't believe in nations. They think that if you believe in borders, you're a nationalist, and a nationalist means you're a Nazi.
Yeah.
She's a communist, and that's the reason why she wants to have all the free open borders.
When you say she doesn't believe in borders, you mean she just envisions them differently?
No. The Democratic Socialists of America think that there should be no borders at all.
But then you would have no states.
Exactly.
That's right.
No cities.
There's
That's
one,
what
correct.
Ian,
No walls.
Ian,
Where's the?
Ian, that's what communism is. Communism is a global thing. Like when they say real communism has never been tried,
State owns everything.
it's because there has never been a full global communism. So when you say the Soviet Union was communism, and they tried communism, and it didn't work, then the communist reply is, real communism has never been tried. And the reason it's never been tried is because it was not global. There was class, there was nations. And as long as that is the situation, it's not real communism.
The New World Order.
My favorite is when you ask a communist, like, what do they want? They go, I vision like Star Trek.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you mean post-scarcity world where you can tell a computer to just fabricate something from from ambient energy. And it does. Bro, I'll tell you this.
They had property.
When we get to the point where we have replicators and you can literally be like, computer, ham sandwich, and then it does, sure, we can have some agreements on labor reforms at that point, but spare me this utopian vision while 100 million people over the past 100 some odd years were murdered in mass.
Even then, man, when that replicator's in action, who built the replicator? What is the replicator's code base?
Replicator built the replicator.
So is the replicator giving you actual water when you say
Yes.
water, or is it giving you something slightly different and it's
It's going to be
telling you that
slightly
it's
different.
water?
It's going to be
Hold on.
like Delta 9 weed compared
Hold
to
on.
real weed.
That's what I'm talking about.
Large, complicated replicators replicate small replicators. What they do is there's ambient energy they absorb, and then it it fuses the particles together to make the appropriate elements, and then that's the world of science fiction. Hey, maybe one day we'll get there, and if we do, we can have a conversation about labor reforms, and then we can talk about how everybody just has unlimited food and all this stuff. And then what's going to happen is the communists are going to say too many people are eating food, getting fat, and having babies, and then you know what communists do? They do what they always do.
What they're doing right now.
Well, communists have a history of just murdering millions upon millions of people.
Oh, we don't have enough food? Face the wall, please.
But it's not even that. When there's too much food, they're going to be like, okay, now that food is infinite supply or near infinite, and people are eating too much of it and they're getting sick, we got to deal with the like, they're going to excise the people they deem to be wrong. It's this world doesn't exist where they think. I love that meme where someone said, What are you going to do once communism is achieved? And they said, I think I'll teach people how to do poetry on my farm and maybe do art classes. And then the response was, your farm? These people don't get it. No. They're first order thinkers, and they're going to be in a world for hurt if this ever happens.
The Italian island of 6,000 we talked about before the show. I'm not going to say on air what I was saying before the show because it's horrific to envision what could happen to a mass of migrants that move into a place where they're not wanted if you don't try and stop it ahead of time and you just let it keep happening.
It's going to get really, really bad.
It could get so bloody.
Okay,
you do not want to see that.
Let's talk about the southern border and where we're at right now. New York, Chicago. These are liberal bastions freaking out. AOC is getting screamed at. One of the risks that I fear, because they are not properly securing our borders and dealing with the crisis of illegal immigrants flooding into the system, is these people who are coming in do not recognize our government. Governments fall when the people do not have confidence in those governments. So if you look at, let's go back to, we talked about Lexington and Concord and the American Revolution. When the Crown said Massachusetts is in a state of rebellion and here's what you have to do, the militias outside of Boston says, we don't recognize you and we're going to do whatever we want, because there was no confidence that they could do anything and there was a willingness to reject them. Let me put it this way. If a guy walks up to you wearing a clown suit and says, I'm from Clown Division, put your hands against the wall, you'd be like, what? No. Clown Division, hands against. Why would you put your hands against the wall for someone showing the Clown Division badge and they have a big clown hair and nose and they go, ee, ee. You'd be like, bro, is this a joke? I don't know who you are and you have no authority over me. You can claim to be the king. You can claim to be the president. That doesn't mean anything. I don't know you. What happens when you import millions of people every year who do not recognize your government and your laws? At some point, you are going to have large groups of people in New York who are going to say, I don't know you, dude. A guy's going to show up, I'm a cop. And they're going to be like, what does that mean to me? You're in our territory now. I'll give you a real world example. It's called Rinkeby in Sweden. They brought in a whole bunch of Somali migrants in the 90s. They sent them to these, they basically had them all go to the same places. There was no regulation and control as to where they were going. What ends up happening is the Somali refugees and migrants who go to this neighborhood of Rinkeby have kids. Those kids grow up surrounded by Somali individuals. They do not see the Swedish people or government as anything to do with them. When the police come in, they start throwing stones and bricks at the cops saying, get out, because they are the authority in that area. And that happened to me when I went there. They didn't throw stones or anything. They started yelling at us and threatening us. And the cops were like, you probably want to leave. We'll follow you out. The simple, I'll give you the simple version. It's more complicated than that. But I asked them, like, we should go? And they're like, it's going to get very dangerous. They could start throwing bricks. We can't do anything to help you. And what we were told by the people in the country who are honest is, well, when you have a generation, all these young men who are in their 20s, and they've got they don't interact with the government. They don't run for office. It's not possible for them to win office. The police don't come in these areas.
They don't pay taxes.
Right. And so in their minds, they are not Swedish. They do not live in this country. And the police who come in, it would be no different than if you saw a dude wearing a badge, a clown badge, walked onto your property. You'd be like, get off my property. You're trespassing. And they know I'm from Clown Division. You'd be like, I don't recognize what that is and don't care. You are trespassing. Now, we as Americans recognize what law enforcement is, the sheriff, the FBI, or otherwise. But what happens when you have all of these non-citizens who are going to be like, I don't know who you are, what you're doing here. I do not know the systems of governance in the United States. I don't know anything about your laws, your politicians, your law enforcement. Then what happens on the southern border when you have these instances occurring in places like New York, and finally in Texas, they say, guys, the federal government is not going to protect our borders. And so what does Texas do? I think was it Texas, right? They put up the floating barricades in the river.
Texas, yeah.
Arizona put up the shipping containers. The federal government said you have no right to do this, and it's technically true as to how the government works. States don't have the right to deal with international borders, but they're starting to, which means states have begun to reject, and it's been going on for a while, federal authority. What happens then when local law enforcement say we are going to secure the borders by force because we can't contain this anymore? Here's a scenario. Texas is being flooded by non-citizens. Non-citizens who are not going to recognize law enforcement will probably flee from law enforcement, not recognize taxes and laws, and try and work under the table. We are seeing economic repercussions and economic damage and crime and drugs. Not all of them are bad people, but there are a lot of drugs and child trafficking. The feds won't do enough about it, or they're not doing anything about it. So what happens then when in Texas, a local town or a county sheriff, they say, you hear the screaming that's going on in Texas. Going on in New York. Imagine a scenario in a year from now where the same amount of screaming is happening to a sheriff, and they're screaming, I don't care what you do, but stop this now. Then the sheriff says, okay, we're going to get a bunch of guys to the border, and we're going to defend the border by force if necessary. We're going to bring cars. We're going to build barricades. The federal government says stop, and they say, I don't know who you are, what you're talking about. And they do it anyway. What happens then when conflict breaks out between the people who are trying to flood through the border and the people who are now sick of it? This is a path to violence. What you need in this country is a federal government who says, in order to avoid violence, conflict, and crisis, we have to have procedural, we have to have a process for how we deal with this. We have to deport people. We have to create security barricades and not let them just come in. But they're doing everything, it seems, in their power to escalate things to the point of social breakdown, violence, chaos, etc.
Yes, it's gotten so bad in New York City. Just even in the past few months, you had Lady Gaga's dad speaking out and saying enough is enough. They're flowing over. You can't even really walk down parts of 8th Avenue because they're just housing them there. Staten Island just had one of the migrant shelters they were using, I believe, is an old school. You can't even go outside there because it smells so bad because of the sewage issue. It's all backed up. The neighbors there, they don't even want to leave their house because it smells of sewage and it reeks. And then you have all these kids who are... If I send my kid to a school in New York City, a public school, he has to be vaccinated. He has to have vaccination records. These migrant children, they don't. That's an issue because if there's an outbreak of something like measles, it's spreading to these kids, some of them who can't be vaccinated because they're immunocompromised, they can't get a vaccine, and none of the migrant kids coming in have to be vaccinated at all. They're not held to the same standards as the children of citizens there, of New Yorkers, of people in this country. They don't care.
Yeah, but you look at a state like Texas, guys, and I know everybody thinks Texas is conservative, but now with Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, and Houston all being liberal now, the great replacement theory, it's in Texas, we are being affected by immigration, probably worse, other than California and Arizona, worse than anybody in the entire country, and it's done on purpose. A state that was likely conservative in the next 10 years, no doubt, will be liberal. Because of this. A big part of this because of the
They hate the rule of law, which is the only thing that separates us from third world countries is law and order, the rule of law.
Yes.
And they loathe the rule of law. They want us to just be one globalist, homogenous.
Who's they?
The globalist.
Is this like World Economic Forum?
Yeah.
Klaus Schwab's buddies and stuff? Like, I wonder, who do you guys think they are exactly?
Well, it's a conglomerate.
Are their names even out there?
There's people in the Catholic Church, probably, Israel, probably, there's probably a whole conglomerate of the Trilateral Commission. I'm just saying there's...
Council on Foreign Relations.
That's what I'm saying. It's a group
Flying
of
into
people.
Davos.
They is really simple. It refers to establishment, political, and corporate power.
So financial. It's financial stuff.
Yeah, I would say the
that's a component of it.
corporations are the most powerful, in my opinion.
Well, there's also a group of people, especially the Davos types, who, they call themselves futurists, and this is their job to future think and think about what it would be like if we were all one global community.
James Lindsay calls it a Gnostic cult, and that's what it is. They're all essentially, it's essentially a religion, and they are looking for a one world government. And when you say they, I'm talking about Marxists, right? Actually neo-Marxists, right? So because the economic school of Marxism was proven to not work in the, with the fall of the Soviet Union and all of the countries that have tried socialism. And so neo-Marxism is a new approach to Marxism. And you can take all of the intersectional stuff that you've got, and that is all different like species of Marxism. And they all have the same essential goal.
Let me take it to an even weirder spot. This is how weird I am, Ian. I believe it's actually satanic, and I think it comes out of the Bible, and it's Genesis chapter 11, verse 9. And if you flip that, it's weird that it's 9/11. But in that, it talks about the Tower of Babel, and that Nimrod wanted to build a kingdom to heaven to go kill God. And what God did is he made all the tribes and make it where they can communicate, and so everybody went their, separate ways. So what they're doing now, these people that worship the devil, they want to invert everything in the Bible. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to reverse engineer Nimrod's plan and build a one world order. So we're under one rule, one currency, one system. So it's actually satanic. I know that sounds crazy.
You don't have to believe in devils to agree with him, because I don't believe in like supernatural stuff,
Yeah,
but I still think that he's right, because
It's an
I
issue
don't
of-
believe it, but they do.
Right.
Yeah, they do.
These people believe these weird superstitions. And I don't know if all of them do. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.